the decision to keep going and to keep living another day, to be able to look into the soul of a dog and know that they're depending on you, along with your family as well. But there's just something so unique about looking into a dog's eyes, and it just gives you purpose for living another day. I would definitely attribute that to my dog Harley and the whole experience for sure.
Welcome to the Purple Stars podcast, the place where every life story and paw print has the power to touch your heart and inspire meaningful change. I'm Sarah Herzl, your host, a coach for health and mindset, a founder, an author, and above all, an animal lover. In this podcast, we bring together guests who share a deep love for our furry companions and offer unique perspectives on life and the life lessons they have learned from animals. If you're an animal lover who is eager to grow personally, this is precisely where you belong.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Purple Stars podcast. My name is Sarah. I'm your host, and I am so excited for today. Our guest is the CEO of the nonprofit Clear Path for Veterans, and I wanted to have someone on the show to talk about this topic for so long, ever since I started it. So I'm very excited to have him on, and his name is Ryan Woodruff. Please welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here. I'm honored and looking forward to the conversation. Thank you so much.
Me too, very much so. Ryan, could you share a little bit about your journey, particularly what led you to join the military? I read up quite a bit about you and your path up front, but particularly for the audience who doesn't know your journey yet.
Yeah, for sure. As far back as I can remember, I've always wanted to be in the military. Back as far as grade school, I decided that the Marine Corps was going to be the best choice for me. Why? I mean, the Marine Corps has a reputation for being one of the more difficult, challenging branches to navigate through of all the branches of service in the nation's military. And so, movies aside and all of that, I didn't have any familial or external influences. I will say, growing up, we were displaced quite a bit, not because of military ties, but we moved around a lot. And I found myself kind of being a new kid everywhere we went. And so that could lead a child, and it did for me, to feel a little bit isolated, suppressed. It was hard to find and build community. And I was really gravitated towards the idea of joining a fraternity, a brotherhood in the military. And the Marine Corps is really what stuck with me. So continuing on through school, getting back to, where I was originally from. I was raised in New York, but we moved around quite a bit along the East Coast. I ended up graduating from high school at a small town in central New York. And the day I graduated, I went to boot camp. And so, yeah, and I knew it was coming. The thing is, before I enlisted, I graduated high school in 2005. So 9/11 happened in my freshman year. And going in the military at that time, I knew full well that I was going to be getting into a very turbulent time, specifically for the Marine Corps in particular, but for the defense of our nation. And I had decided long before that I wanted to be an infantryman. So as an infantryman, it's expected, especially during a time of conflict, that I would see war. So at 17 years old, I told my mother at the time, I was like, I'm going to enlist when I'm 18. So it would do me a great service if you just signed the papers for me now so that I could start this process and be a little bit further along by the time I ship off to boot camp. So she hesitantly did that, and that just began a whole new chapter for me.
Wow. I was just thinking about your mom before you mentioned her, because I was like, wow, how must it feel for a mom when the son is so determined to go a path where, as a mom, he is risking his life?
Yeah, for sure. And to add insult to injury, my brother followed in my footsteps, and he joined the Marine Corps right after me. He's a little bit older. My mom raised us as a single mother, and my brother was kind of like a pseudo father for me. He helped me become the man I am today, for sure. And at the time, he had already been out of high school and was trying to find his place in the world, and saw something that I was really passionate about. And he, on a whim, just decided, I'm going to go too. And we actually shipped off to boot camp together and ended up in the same platoon for 3 months down at Paris Island, which I think for my mom, that was quite a bit. But nonetheless, I think it was really good for both of us to have that experience together.
Ryan, I can hear how passionately, even after all these years talking about, you are. How was it for you then to transition?
Yeah, that's a multi-dimensional answer, I would say. Going back to my time of service, I deployed to Iraq twice, right? So as an infantryman, I was 18 years old once I was assigned to my unit out of boot camp. And within 7 months, we were deployed to Iraq. And I knew I was going to go. It was no surprise to me. But I don't think anybody, regardless of the amount of training you do and everything that you digest prior to experiencing something like that, can really, truly mentally prepare for the gravity of conflict, combat, war. And so my first deployment in 2006 was in an area of operations that was experiencing a lot of heavy combat, in particular roadside bombs, sniper fire, small arms fire. And the group of men that I served with, we, for lack of better words, went through hell together prior to going to Iraq. And then while in Iraq, we were just really in the thick of it. So working through some of the deepest, darkest struggles that you could ever imagine. And unfortunately, not everybody came home. On that first deployment, we actually lost 14 people in my unit. And I think, the best way for me to describe this is, at 19 years old, that's a hard thing to wrestle with. And so your body, I feel, takes over and tries to automatically deal with those issues in very unique ways. And for me, that was avoidance, suppression, coping strategies that were unhealthy. And that's just the way I was programmed at the time. And I had come back home, and within 7 months, we deployed again. So, in a very short period, 2 deployments to Iraq, and having lost some friends of mine. And at a very young age, I would say I turned 21, my second deployment in Iraq. And after coming home, I realized that there was a part of this world that I wasn't experiencing. And I was really gambling with my life and continuing this life of service and defense of our country for our military. And so I started to think of the possibility of becoming a civilian and what that would be like. And, I had a plan. I got out of the military in 2009, moved back to central New York. And really that started a new chapter for me that I would say now I was really unprepared for.
What would you say, looking back, were some of the biggest challenges? Because you already mentioned, which I guess now you know because you're very reflected, like how you dealt with it was suppression and avoidance. And I assume then once there was actually the time for the emotions to surface, it must have been a whirlwind.
Yeah, for many years, I would say close to a decade after I got out of the service, I really haven't faced the issues, the trauma, the depression, anxiety, the panic attacks, all of the symptoms I were experiencing. I gravitated towards alcohol to suppress that, late nights, whatever I could do to experience a level of thrill that would be similar to what I experienced in the military. I think that that pursuit of those high risk type of activities is common for those leaving the military. It certainly was for me. And also, what I realize now that I didn't back then is there needs to be more time for service members to really integrate seamlessly from their military to their civilian transition. It's just not, it doesn't work really well when you have the federal government will allow for about 3 to 5 days of separation training to learn what it is to be a civilian and some of the things that you should be looking for as a veteran to be accessing your benefits and that kind of thing. But it doesn't really prepare you for what it's truly like to try to integrate back into the community. And historically, traditional warrior culture always viewed that as something very important. There were rituals, there was a process. Uh, People that were serving in a time of conflict and war weren't just coming back home. There was a period of time that they had to decompress. They had to learn how to deal with some of the emotions and the issues that they were struggling with. And for me and many of the others that I served with, the military became part of our fabric. It was our identity. And at such a young age to be taught how to take life and given the authority to do so, experience combat, and then think that you can turn around, go to college, and just be another kid on the block it's just not the way it works. And so, a lot of different things that I experienced for many years until I started to turn around and think about how can I better my situation.
What has helped you to actually then start taking care of your mental health? Because I can imagine, like you all went through the same situations and probably have similar symptoms, as you mentioned, your panic attacks, and everyone tends to different outlets to either recreate the thrill or also to avoid the pain and the trauma. Yet it's still a very isolating experience. So I wonder what has helped you actually to take that first step to take care of your mental health.
For me, it was the community, finding a group of folks that wanted better for me and themselves. So I think it's just really important. What I did was I surrounded myself with people that were experiencing the same problems, but weren't exactly looking for ways to resolve them. And that was compounding the issues. And there was comfort in that because it was a place that I resonated with, and there's people that were experiencing the same things, but we weren't exactly looking for how do we pull ourselves out of this? What does it look like in 5 or 10 years? And so there's many different chapters after I got out of the military that led me towards, where I work now, but also to just a group of people that genuinely care. And I think that's just so critical. And no matter where you find yourself, be it the military or any other challenging moment that you're having in your life, I think fellowship and community are just so critical. To surround yourself with people that really want better for you, want better for their own situation, and it will not necessarily accountability group, but a group of folks that are really looking to incrementally move the needle a little bit further right every day. I think that for me was really a keystone variable to helping me, resolve some of this stuff.
I find it interesting how you said that in the beginning it brought you comfort being, surrounded by your fellows who had experienced similar situations. But at the same time, I was thinking it's almost obvious that if one person would have encouraged you to face your trauma, it would have also automatically led that person who encouraged you to do the same. And I think that's really hard when we're surrounded by people with similar trauma, yet they are too afraid to face that trauma, to be encouraged, to go through it and to know that you're not alone in it. And community is so important when whatever we're facing in life, whether it's grief or a big life change or transitioning into a new chapter in our lives, the feeling of we are not alone is so healing, and it's such a potent medicine. And I'm wondering now, everything that you know about mental health, what advice would you give someone who wants to join the military at a young age in general?
That's a great question. There's a lot that I wish I knew prior to going in the military. And the military is a unique culture and fraternity, and it does transform you. But there's a level of resiliency that you develop as a service member that it's hard to find in many other places. But
Mhm.
preparing your mind and your body to overcome struggle and challenges is something, I'm a parent now that I try to teach my children, like to not walk away from adversity and to
Mhm.
not necessarily prematurely push yourself into a situation that's going to put you underwater, but to experience mild discomfort over time can lead to great progress in a lot of what you do. And you can train your mind and your body how to overcome struggle early on. And I think it's really important that we don't live sanitized lives for our formative years prior to going out into the world. And I think that's a big struggle that we're seeing our youth face even today, is that, we've progressed a lot as a country, as a world, and things have gotten much easier. I mean, everything from writing an email to going down
Mhm.
to the library and not having to use a card catalog anymore.
Yeah.
Like, life's pretty convenient and pretty
Mhm.
easy. And it's very uncharacteristic for children and adults these days to choose the path less traveled. And I think the more we do that, and I think that there's a lot that we're finding as a community at large, that there's a lot of power in doing things like ice plunges or
Mhm.
entering into mild forms of stress so that your body learns how to deal with the mental and emotional stress.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
I'm really glad you brought up the topic adversity and discomfort, because it is something that's on a daily basis. Of course, the military is a whole other like level of discomfort and stress, but I always like to compare it to a muscle that is important to train it on a daily basis. It could be, like not letting the alarm, don't hit the alarm snooze button, just get right out of bed, or uh, anything that you don't feel like doing, whether it's a workout or going for a walk or eating healthily today or staying hydrated or going to bed early or reading a book rather than scrolling for Instagram. It's like so many little things that like accumulate. And actually, when we are training ourselves to go through certain discomforts and actually choose our growth over whatever is familiar, it really has such a ripple effect, not just on our mental health, but on anything. I also think it's such a huge boost for relationships, because
Hmm.
then we're less afraid to have uncomfortable conversations or to address certain triggers, or actually like reflect, oh, actually, what did I contribute to this situation? And I think social media contributes a lot to the picture of what life at the moment looks like for others, and everything is like filtered, literally, and it's like it looks easy, and people like show their salads and their workouts and their hashtag relationship goals, things like that. And
Yeah.
whilst I think it's great to share our sunny sides as well, it is really important to remember the human sides of life. And, there's sun and there's rain, there's day and night, and that's just how it is. And I think if we expect life to be something that it can never be, not for you, not for me, not for anyone in the audience, we set ourselves up for so much failure and disappointment and unnecessary heartbreak. And so that's why one of the many reasons why I love that you're teaching your kids already at an early age that embracing discomfort and sitting with discomfort is really the gateway to our freedom, to a lot of things in life.
I couldn't agree more. I think you nailed it. The first person you're going to come up against every morning is yourself. I experienced it this morning. I have a pretty, I wouldn't say rigid, but I have a routine that I follow now that I've learned over time, but it involves getting out of bed before the sun comes up and journaling and reading and controlling your inputs and then doing something physical first thing, because there's only so much time in a day, and really, how do you want to spend that? And that's something I try not to like preach to my children, because I understand they're in a different stage of their development and everything is relative. And I don't want them to grow up and look back and say, well, dad put so much pressure on us as kids, and we had to get up at 0500 and read the Bible and do all of these things. And it's like it's all relative, but if there's a small milestone or hurdle for them to overcome, there's a lot of encouragement involved. If they fall down, I'm there to help them up, but also encourage them to try again. It's important as parents, as important as coaches and leaders and mentors and all that we do. And in the veteran community in particular, it's very easy for veterans to leave the military, claim disability to a point where their income is no longer an issue, and then fall trapped to isolation, no purpose, lack of identity. They don't have a structured routine or somebody telling them what to do and where to go and when to do it anymore. And it's upsetting, it's just really discouraging to see that happen. And I would say my message to those folks is like, go talk to somebody, be a little bit vulnerable. Vulnerability, I think, is coming back. And it's particularly, I mean, I can speak for the male community and the males and veterans particularly. They don't like to share their stories. They don't like to talk about the hard stuff. And some of it isn't even tied to the military in particular. Some of it's prior military experiences. But if you can build trust with a group of folks that really want to help you overcome some of this stuff and open up and be vulnerable, it's going to hurt. It's going to like really be painful and suck. But after you get through that, there's been nothing that I've experienced or done in my life which hasn't required really breaking through some type of very difficult ceiling, such as sharing your story, publicly or personally with somebody. I think story is just so incredibly important.
And Ryan, I love that you mentioned earlier that you journal, because a lot of people associate vulnerability with sharing, like on Instagram, having a podcast, writing a book, being a speaker. But vulnerability starts one-on-one with ourselves.
I couldn't agree more.
That's really the very first step. And this can look differently for everyone. Like I personally also love to journal. Others might spend time in nature, and the next person might like to pray or read the Bible, or listen to music to open up their hearts. Like everyone has a different way of cracking their heart a little open day by day. But I think it's so important to remember vulnerability and starts with ourselves, paired with the belief that we have the strength to hold our hearts regardless of how heavy they will be at a certain point.
Yeah, absolutely. And to have a vision for your day or yourself and to write that down and reflect on it through your day is pretty powerful, because it's that one uncongested moment. And everybody does things at different times. For me, it's got to be like I'm primed first thing in the morning. It's where I can get my unfiltered thoughts on paper. It's where I'm most creative. And if
Can you talk us a little bit through your morning routine? I would love to hear that.
For sure. Yeah. So it's changed over the years. And since I'm waking up, before the sun comes up, I'm not able to go out and immediately get like sunlight and all of that. If I try to get sunlight as much as possible, but literally as soon as I wake up, the one rule I have is don't touch your phone. I don't go to bed with my phone in my bedroom, and it's somewhere where I just can't access it, which is critically important today, I think, more than ever, because we're essentially controlled by our phones, from
Mm-hmm.
work to community to social stuff. And anyway, that's a rule for me. So I don't touch my phone. I am a man of deep faith, so I do read the Bible every morning. I tend to fix on a specific book or chapter within the Bible, and I read it slowly, and that helps me in my journaling as well. So I'll reflect for a few moments, and I do some prayer. I'll write some thoughts down in my journal, and I'll just pray, like, whatever it is that's on my heart at that moment, help
Mm-hmm.
guide me through today and some of the challenges that I may experience, help me be a light for others, and I think that really sets the tenor for all of the adversity that I'm going to experience. I do read a couple things though. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
read the Bible, and then I might read another book or something devotional. That's,
Mm-hmm.
again, it's like 30 minutes to 45 minutes of just fixing my mind, my heart, and my spirit on the direction it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I typically will either I'll have a fitness routine, or in the last year I started boxing. So I go to a boxing gym a couple times a week. And again, like, if the best part of my day is overcoming a physical challenge and setting
Mm-hmm.
my heart and my mind right, like, everything else is just, it puts it into a much better perspective. Like, this day can't get any, it's just not going to go bad, because I just had such an incredible
Mm-hmm.
morning, did
Yeah.
all of these things, and I feel good. And those are the things that I do every day.
I'm a huge fan of routines, or I also love to call them rituals, because every day is so different. Like, even if we have a 9 to 5 job and we've been living in the same place forever, there's still, like, if there's one constant in life, it is change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so good for our nervous system to have a certain sense of stability. And that's something we can only create within ourselves. So if we can have certain routines and rituals, it gives us a sense of familiarity, which allows our nervous system to calm down. And I love that you mentioned that your routine has evolved over the years. And I've seen this with so many clients of mine, and also within myself. And I want to mention something with morning routines, because a lot of people out there hear a morning routine, let's say, for example, yours, and they say, wow, this is an amazing morning routine. I want to, like, rigidly follow exactly Ryan's morning routine. And whilst I think it's great to get inspiration of other people for our own rituals and our own routines, it is so crucial to actually develop a routine that matches our own personality and also the season of life we're in. Because let's say we're going through a loss, our energy will be depleted. We, like, there's a lot of energy needed for mourning, for being sad, being angry, being frustrated, and all, or maybe even avoiding the emotions. There's so much. And maybe at that time, for example, boxing is not the best option. It might be better to tend to yoga or to go for a walk. Like, I'm just giving an example where I think it's so important to do carve out a time for ourselves, whether it's 5 minutes, 45 minutes, 1.5 hours. I'm a big fan, whatever season we're in, no technology for a certain amount of time upon waking. And because that really allows us to, you call it fixing our heart, mind, and spirit, and body. I call it for checking in with ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
reconnecting and making sure that our body is not here and our mind is, like, traveling 5 years back and our soul is somewhere else. It's really about coming back home and really allowing ourselves to have that. So I always love to say, when people want to have a ritual or a morning routine or evening routine, whatever it is, allow yourself to explore different areas and then choose for yourself what you feel is the right thing, because so often we cannot follow through, not because we don't have the discipline, but because it is a routine that just simply doesn't serve our nature or the season we're in right now.
That's incredibly important. And I think being adaptable to seasonal shifts is so.
Yes.
And in my own, and the evolution of my morning rituals, I used to be breath work and meditation first thing when I woke up. But that was at a point where I was struggling, and I had to get my rhythm figured out first thing in the morning. And meditation and breath work has been really helpful for me over the years. And I would recommend that to anybody, really, if you're looking to help control some of the emotions and symptoms that you're experiencing, breathwork can be an incredible modality to experience,
totally.
But it takes time and consistency. And I think the other part that is important to what you mentioned is just getting reflexive over, like a reflexive response to all of these things. And just like dog training, which I know we'll get into. And another part of my morning ritual is connecting with my dogs, by the way. Like every
That's the
single
best part.
It is because it immediately brings you joy. And it's a small part of experiencing community in a very unique way. But again, like the more you practice these things, it becomes reflexive and your day is just better for it. And then your life, and it has a ripple effect on others that get to experience your company. It's just so important.
Can we please talk about the nonprofit you're working for? What your mission is, and particularly also what's the role of the animals helping and bringing healing to the people that work with your nonprofit organization?
I'm glad you asked. So Clear Path for Veterans is a veteran serving organization outside of Syracuse, New York. We've been around for about 15 years, and the best way I can put it is that we're meeting veterans exactly where they're at, starting with connection and genuine authenticity, and trying to get to know them before we necessarily connect them to one of our core programs. We think of everything we do revolving around the dimensions of wellness. And so everything from mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, intellectual, all of that, physical, we've developed these programs over time to account for the whole person. So when a veteran connects with ClearPath, after really just welcoming them and saying, we're glad you're here. You don't need to show me your ID card. This isn't a medical center in, downtown, wherever you're from. This is a 78-acre campus in the middle of a beautiful, serene environment where we want to sit down, get to know you, grab some coffee, talk about some of your challenges if you feel ready to discuss that, see how we can assist you in some of maybe your immediate challenges. And then after getting to know them, really to drive programs that would be best suited for them. So we have our Canine program, which I'll talk more about, but our Canine program really takes into account the power of the human-animal bond and developing a very unique and transformational relationship with a dog to help veterans lead a more independent life. So a lot of the folks that we're working with that are struggling with post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury or all these other comorbidities have lost their ability to love, to go out into public, to find community and integrate with society. And a dog is just, they are just so naturally easy to connect with. And for thousands of years, humans have been connecting with animals, in particular canines. And so we've just taken that and we've purposely trained these animals to respond to veterans' challenges and symptoms that they're experiencing, and to prompt them when they're experiencing some of these things. And just that there, or just maintaining eye contact with a dog. I'm not a scientist, but I know there's tons of research out there that talks about the changes in cortisol and oxytocin and how it just settles you. And it's a process for sure.
There is an amazing research done by a Swedish university. They checked the cortisol levels from the dogs and their owners. So for the humans through the blood and for the dogs through their hair samples, and they were identical.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. They were identical. And I love that because first of all, I think we don't need a research to know that, because it is something we feel when we have an animal around. Like, it's just an instant shift. For
Yeah.
some people, it brings them more ease. For some people, more joy. For some people, more fun or more love, whatever it is. But similar to what you said earlier, dogs meet you where you are at.
Yeah.
Always.
And they will reveal things in your character.
Mm-hmm.
Your walls come down, and vulnerability is pretty automatic when it comes to a dog. They just have that unique ability to break through some of those barriers. And that was, for me, that was my story. I connected with ClearPath as a staff member about 10 years ago, but I was also a recipient of the service dog program. So I went through it and experienced some of the deepest, hardest challenges that I've ever done. But the dog that I was matched with, it was like looking at myself in the mirror at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that revealed some things within my character that I was like, okay, like I am vicariously transforming. Like this relationship is only going to work if I'm going to be willing to improve my own situation. Mm-hmm. And so the teamwork involved in that, having a vision for your dog, even a pet, I think is important. If you say, I want to do sport with this dog, or mm-hmm. I just want to walk in nature with my dog for the rest of my life, then, hold yourself accountable to mm-hmm. that and do it, because it's not just for you, it's for the other end of the leash as well.
Ryan, what was the dog you got first matched with? What was her name?
Her name is Harley.
Harley.
Yep.
Was she then exclusively your dog and came home with you, or did she stay at the campus, or how does that work?
This is an interesting story. So, and again, this is about 10 years ago, mm-hmm. and the program was much different at the time. She was adopted from a shelter. So she was a rescue, formerly a stray down in Texas. And they, at the time, the processes within the program were much more, they were just different, right? So I was able to select this dog. I, for whatever reason, I thought a pointy-eared German Shepherd mm-hmm. would be a great service dog. And I was wildly wrong, mm-hmm. which is important. This is just really important to my story. We got her, and I started training with this dog, and she was super happy and just glad to be in an environment that wasn't like survival mode every mm-hmm. day, which is similar to like my story mm-hmm. getting out of the military, but I hadn't overcome some of those challenges yet. And so she eventually, within 6 months, became a little bit nasty towards people around me. Mm-hmm. And I was working with a trainer at the time that's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but you are pent up. All of that energy is transferring to your dog. Mm-hmm. And when people are coming close to you, that's why you're getting that level of reaction. Mm-hmm. And so her long term, she didn't become a service dog, which I'm fine with, because it did a couple things for me. It helped me realize that there were things within myself that I needed to work on before I could mm-hmm. make something like this work. And it helped me discover my affinity and passion for training dogs. So eventually I became a professional dog trainer and started mm-hmm. working within this program to help other veterans, get to a place where I wasn't able to achieve, but evolve it and do it a little bit differently over time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and unfortunately she lost her life in a car accident. Mm-hmm. And that was probably one of the darkest moments too, like that really brought me to my knees. And this was in 2018. And so a couple months earlier, I had quit drinking, and I was like on a path to betterment. Like I was really fixed on there's things going on in my life, and I need to do something different. And the dog was a catalyst to that, but so was my family as well. So it was a whole unit. And I started this journey, and this event happens, right? And I was literally like brought to my knees and hollowed out, and didn't know how to channel this energy into something positive. But again, back to leaning into adversity and trying to overcome those challenges. The easiest thing for me to do is go back to drinking and just
Mm-hmm.
say, I'm done. Like, I tap out. But I kept trudging along, and I went back within the program and started to make some changes so that another veteran coming behind me wouldn't experience the same thing that I did. And really, that's what led me to investing more of my time and talents into this program, to developing
Mm-hmm.
it into what it is today. So as horrible as it was, and honestly, to this day, every year comes by and I sit in grief and reflect on that
Mm-hmm.
moment. But because that happened, there are so many other veterans that are connecting with us and going through our accredited program that are experiencing this life-changing partnership with trained service dogs that are literally saving lives. So
Mm-hmm.
it happened and it sucked, but there is purpose behind that event. And so I have to live with that. And it's been incredible, since that time.
Thank you so much for sharing it. It gave me goosebumps. Also, um, I saw this picture, like how you chose the German Shepherd. I would even say she chose you, even if you were the one saying it out loud. How both of you came from an abusive, or not abusive, but like stressful survival background, both basically on the same journey of healing, of trusting again others' life. And how blessed were you having a dog trainer back then that worked so, I would say, holistically, to actually see that her reaction towards others is a mirror of your inner world? It's just absolutely incredible. And then for her to unfortunately die in a car accident, but putting you in a position that shows you your biggest strength, and then actually also saves so many other lives where this pain was turned into purpose, is truly moving and touching. And I'm sure if she is just looking down, she is very proud.
That means a lot, and thank you for saying that. I have to think that too. And this trainer happens to be the founder of ClearPath too,
Mm-hmm.
and this all started with a dog for her too. She had her own story, which I wouldn't do it justice telling, but really starting with using a dog to help inner city kids after finding out that she couldn't have children of her own, and then connecting with a veteran that had this idea of starting a program to train service dogs for veterans. And this happened in 2011, and I didn't connect with her until 2016. But man, I would say she kind of like just adopted me and
Mm-hmm.
decided to look at something within me that I didn't see within myself. The same with the dog. And I always tell people, like, you don't get the dog you want, you get the dog you
You need.
need.
Mm-hmm. That's so
And
true.
it for sure would be the case with me. And I've heard so many other stories like this. And it's carried with me. And there's been so many that we've been able to connect with since that time, and really help change the narrative and elevate this program to being something unique. And we do the Canine program, but there's also so much more that people have access to when they connect with ClearPath, which is what
Mm-hmm.
makes this place so special. It's just incredible. To be in the position that I'm in now, I never would have seen myself here, a couple of years ago. But I'm grateful and humbled, and it's a very important mission to carry forward, and I'm just so happy to be able to do it.
We will make sure that we put all the links in the show notes, so when people want to either find out how they can support you, or if they're a veteran that want to have a clear path, I'll make sure we'll put all of that in the show notes. I also read that you have a very big vision for Clear Path for Veterans, what are the next milestones you are working on?
I'm glad you asked. So we're, as of right now, our Canine program in a very short period from 2022 to today, we've started serving veterans nationally. And so we've generated a lot of interest in our program because of not only what we do within our Canine program, but all the other things that veterans have access to. And so with that, we've decided that we're going to expand our campus and make a dedicated facility specifically for training the service dogs. And right now we have space and access to facilities within our main campus, but there's so much more that we could accomplish with a dedicated facility and expanded kennels and even cabins, so that when veterans are coming to us from somewhere across the country, we don't have to put them up in a hotel, but they could stay right on site in the 78-acre campus. And so this is it's a lofty venture for us. It's an $18 million build out, but it takes a village for sure. We wouldn't still be around if this mission wasn't important. And we're just so thankful to those that say yes to supporting veterans, to connect with us and seek different unique ways of supporting some of these projects. And really what this does for our Canine program is triple the amount of service dogs that we can train and place within a given year, with access to incredible animal welfare facilities, aquatherapy pools, highly trained staff, and the list just goes on. The dogs that we're training and placing have the highest quality. I mean, it's better than me. I mean, these dogs literally, I have like custom nutrition plans. They are getting physical therapy, exercise every day. If the weather's too inclement, they're on treadmills inside. They get access to socialization, play, high level medical care. And it's just incredible with what we've been able to accomplish since the time that I went through the program to now. And to think about expanding this campus to provide more access and to give purpose to the dog too, I think is just a part of this that's really important. Dogs, to be a service dog, it wildly changes the trajectory of that dog's life. They're now able to go wherever the general public is allowed to legally travel and be with their partner all the time. What better life is that? It's just incredible. And we're excited for this. So that's what's next for us.
This is so exciting. And I just love how this entire mission is filled with so much purpose, and that everyone involved in this program and in your nonprofit gives each other purpose, whether it's, the dogs or the humans or people working with you, like your team members. I think it's incredible that you are now part again of a community, that you are fighting for something bigger together. And it's beautiful that you could recreate this fellowship in a different way. I think that's incredible.
I'm grateful. This wasn't the plan I had for myself when I got out of the military. And a lot of the folks that I work with are former military as well, and civilians. And I think that's just an important thing to remember here. It's not just the veteran community helping veterans, which is important, but we as a broader community, likewise, it's reciprocal. Veterans want to continue to live a life of service. And if we can do that and help our local communities and national communities move the needle on some of the social problems we're facing, then that gives us new purpose. And I was just blessed and lucky to find this place at ClearPath. And I look forward to what we're able to do, but we're always looking to partner with other folks that are in the space of human services. And if it's something that we don't provide directly through our Canine program or peer support or employment or wellness, then we'd like to fill the gap through a partnering provider as well.
I love that so much. It's incredible. And it must be so fulfilling waking up and knowing that you make a difference in the world.
It is. And the reality of it is the the numbers suggest that some of these problems are increasing, and it can be discouraging at times, and it keeps me up at night. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much more work to be done. I mean, we're working with veterans that go back as far as the Vietnam War era. So these problems are enduring. They don't just go away when the war ends or conflict
Mm-hmm.
is no longer present. Veterans experience issues just being a member of the service when they're not in conflict as well. And I think it says something very unique and special that if a community says, yes, you signed this dotted line on this contract to potentially give the ultimate sacrifice, we're going to welcome you back to this community and take
Mm-hmm.
your transition seriously and really help you find community, purpose, identity, and those next chapters that you're looking for.
Ryan, each guest I have on the show, we have one question from our audience. And Cindy asked, I've been through so much in my life. I lost both my parents when I was young. I've gained a lot of weight over the years, emotionally and physically, and I'm terrified to face my past. What would you suggest?
One small change every day leads to, like, and this, I use dog training analogies all the time, right? Like, if I want to teach a dog to open a door, I don't go for the finished product on day one. It
Mm-hmm.
might be something as simple as grabbing a rope and holding onto it. And then maybe I tie that rope to the door handle and they grab the rope on the door handle.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's progressive, but it's relative too. It's a small incremental progression of change, and where that starting point for you is a choice that you're going to have to identify and make, but then surround yourself with people that are like-minded, that want to help you navigate that unique and incredible journey that you're going down.
Mm-hmm.
Just by being vulnerable enough to ask the question is a huge step in the right direction. So, I would have pride in that, and then start thinking about what incremental change do you want to have tomorrow, and sit with it for a little while. Don't try to uh, achieve something that is outside of reach within a
Mm-hmm.
unrealistic time frame. Give yourself grace and gratitude, and give yourself time to do that. But one small incremental change every day or every week or every month, you would dictate that time frame. But it starts with a decision, and then if you're willing to be vulnerable and share your story, that really speaks volumes to your character and the likelihood of you being successful in these next steps.
I love the analogy with the door opening for vulnerability. That's really smart. I love that. That's really incredible. And it's so true. Like when the analogies I use are a lot like sports related. And I think it's like climbing the Mount Everest. Like
Mm-hmm.
we often get so overwhelmed by certain projects, certain paths, certain traumas to work through, because all we see is the entire mountain. And when we actually can ask ourselves, what is the very first step or the very next step I can take? It feels less overwhelming. And also, I truly believe once we start being on a certain path, the next steps always reveal themselves at the right time and at the right place. So even if Cindy, right now you don't know where to get started, like the very first step is, as Ryan said, making a choice. Like I want to change something. I want to let go of my emotional and my physical and spiritual and mental weight in whatever way that's going to be. And I think once that happens, often also the right people reveal themselves. Whether it's like you listen to a podcast, you're like, wow, I love that therapist. Let me see if she offers one-on-one or if she offers a workshop, or you read a book and then the book like leads to a meditation or to a community. Like I always feel like once we make the choice to show up for ourselves, people around us start to show up as well in the most, and also animals, in the most magical ways. Ryan, I also ask each guest I'm interviewing in 2025 one question. And the question is, if your heart had wings to embrace your fears and rise above, what would you do right now?
Hmm. That's a loaded one. Rise above my fears. So, you know, just being able to get out there and share this incredible work that we're doing, but also elements of my personal story that have taken me over a decade to actually go up in public and start speaking about has been a significant challenge for me to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Also, to be honest with you, taking on this new leadership role within this organization that I'm working for has been a really significant challenge to overcome. And definitely there's some element of fear involved in that. Um,
May I
and I have
ask
to
what kind of fears?
fear of failure for
Mm-hmm.
sure, not being able to create long enough lasting impact in the people that we're serving. It's so very near and dear and close to my heart, both on the human side but also the dog side too. I mean, we have 42 service dogs in training right now. Not every
Wow.
one of them is going to be a service dog. I have
Mm-hmm.
one with me right here that's in training that was pending what we call a career change because there
Mm-hmm.
was some behavioral issues, and he's here for some rehabilitation
Mm-hmm.
training. And I see potential in every human and dog that I work with, and I desperately want to help them realize their potential. And likewise for the organization that I'm leading right now, I'm responsible for helping this organization realize its potential,
Mm-hmm.
in turn having greater impact. And that's it's a it can be a scary thing to
Mm-hmm.
endeavor down, but I've had such incredible support and people that have surrounded me and formed a protective circle and supported me and have lifted me up. This hasn't been a product of me by any stretch
Mm-hmm.
of the way. It's everybody else that has, pushed me a little bit, and even to taking on this role, to be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
to take this role on and to do this work. And so embracing that and being open for what tomorrow brings. It can be not knowing what tomorrow brings and uncertainty. you know there's part of me that is, I embrace uncertainty, but there's another part that puts you a little bit on a red line and
Mm-hmm.
puts you on edge a bit. So that's where I'm at. I think I'm living the embracing the fear part. My heart has wings right now,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm overcoming some of these fears.
Ryan, you said you would love for the program have a long lasting impact. What's your definition of it? And the reason why I'm asking is um, people who are serving, I
Mm-hmm.
see this a lot, um, sometimes don't even see all the impact they have on people's and animals and nature's lives. Because like there's this proverb, and unfortunately I can only repeat in my own words. It says often we plant trees and we don't get to see or experience the beauty of it and the fruits, and also like being in the shade of it. And I think that's a little bit what you are doing. It's like sowing so many seeds out there, and a long lasting impact can look so differently for each individual, whether it's canine or human. And so that's why I'm asking you, because I think it's so important that you do notice. Like I've only met you for like 57 minutes now, but I can feel the impact without even having met any of the people that have been in touch with your nonprofit or any of the dogs. Like I can just feel all the ripple effects that are going out there. And I'm sure so many people in our audience will feel a certain shift within themselves, or feel like, if he could do it, I can do it too. Or yes, let's embrace more adversity. Like there are so many things how we impact people's lives and touch their hearts without knowing. So what's your definition, or what would be a long lasting impact that makes your heart happy and also at peace?
Just hearing you speak to that reminds me that there should be gratitude in the now as well. And in this particular moment, there's a lot that we've been able to accomplish and that we continue to do. And impacting the life of one individual is enough for me to be extremely grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so lasting impact, if I were to think about, clear path and lasting impact, it would be to inspire other communities to think about having something like clear path within them as
Mm-hmm.
well. And that was a part of the original vision, was for folks to experience clear path, go back into their community, or have a community
Mm-hmm.
look at ClearPath and say, we could really use something like this, or a canine program, or a holistic support for veterans within somewhere on the West Coast or wherever
Mm-hmm.
it may be. So being invited into those communities to share a little bit about what we do and the work that we're doing, I think would create significant lasting impact for the veteran community in general. But I don't think it really stops there. I mean, for me personally, I've, along with, certainly, like, dogs will always be a huge part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more we can do, not just for veterans in particular, but other people that are facing challenging circumstances, including the youth, I look forward to a future where there's something like this that's available for everybody, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not just a veteran problem that we're overcoming here. It's a human issue, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a product of where we're at. I mean, it's a product of a lot of the progress, but maybe regression that we've made as a society, where we've lost touch with carving out some of that time for yourself and
Mm-hmm.
to integrate well within a community or a group. And so, I look forward to what the future holds for ClearPath, and I think it might involve the broader community more and more each and every year.
I totally agree with how universal your mission is, or the impact you have and your programs are. That was also one of the reasons why I wanted you to have on our show, because I just think there is so much that people of all walks of life can learn from it. I just hope you're very proud of yourself, because I think what you're doing is absolutely incredible. And I'd love to wrap up our interview with a little pet Q&A, and I'd love to dedicate it. You said her name was Haley?
Harley.
Harley, sorry.
That's
Harley.
okay.
Yeah, like, one question is, what is one of the many reasons you're grateful for Harley?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, there's everything that I am today, I would say, was contributed from my experience with her. But there was many dark moments that I was experiencing back then that she helped pull me out of. And I
Mm-hmm.
would, you know, this is a tough one, but really, the decision to keep going and to keep living another day, to be able to look into the soul of a dog and know that they're depending on you, along with your family as well. But there's just something so unique about looking into a dog's eyes, and it just gives you purpose for living another
Mm-hmm.
day. I would definitely attribute that to my dog Harley, and the whole experience, for sure. So again, it's a very long list,
Mm-hmm.
but just the love too. I mean, it was always incredible, and I'll never let go of that or forget it. Every I think of her every day. I mean, I have pictures surrounding my whole
Mm-hmm.
house of her, and she is 100% the reason. She's the reason that I
Mm-hmm.
continue to do the work that I do, that this canine program has transformed. It's because of her, not because of all of her great qualities, because some of the challenging ones, which is fine. That's the cards I was
Mm-hmm.
dealt, and it's fine. I'm grateful for it, all of it.
Well, and if you could ask her one question, what would it be?
Oh, see, for me, in that, there was a part of my life where, in training in particular, I used to ask myself, like, what could I have done differently? Like, how could I have uh, helped you be your best self or realize your potential as a dog? And like, I think that's a dangerous place to go to, because it puts you in a place of regret. I certainly did everything I could to provide her the highest quality of life possible. But for me and who I was then, I think that a lot of my undesirable characteristics were, she was feeding off of them as well. And so it's like, what could I have done, a little bit differently to connect with you on a different level? I don't know. I mean, what would we be doing today if you were still here? You know, and the other thing too, when it comes to dogs and careers, like, she would have been great at a different job, not the job that she was set out for. I learned that over time too, that we as trainers and professionals can't really dictate the career for every dog that we're training. You work with the dog in front of you just like you would a human being, and you try to determine their best aptitude for whatever it is they're going to be successful in. So if I had a one-on-one with her right now, I would really be interested in what that career would have been, if not a service dog. It could have been so many other things. I'm sure it would have been in military and law enforcement, but that's just what she was really, when it comes to breed characteristics, that's what her drives were. So I'd ask her a little bit about that.
Ryan, I actually think she would answer that you helped her to reach her full potential.
That's very encouraging, for sure. And something that I have to rest with, for sure. I mean, that's worth a whole journal session in it of itself.
The reason why I'm saying it is not just to console you, but I mean, what an amazing, if we call it job, she has had to have such a lasting impact, even after she passed away, for so many people and animals.
Yeah, I'm just grateful to be able to share this in the way that we're doing, because there's not a lot of folks that know this story. And so to be able to share a little bit of, why does this canine program exist? It started with dogs on 2 occasions, one with our founder and then on its transformation with me. And I think it's incredible that, taking that lived in experience and trying to impart that onto others. So thank you again, Sarah, just for giving this unique opportunity to share my story, but also Harley's. That's unexpected and incredible.
I think we should also end this conversation with a very funny question about Harley. What is one of the embarrassing or funny things she did along the way?
That's a pretty long list too. So I used to bring her to work, right? And I worked in an office, and people would come up and come behind me or knock on the door, and she was all black, so you couldn't see her when she was under my desk, and she would come out teeth baring, and people would just do backflips when they saw her. And I mean, for me, like, on one end, it was reinforcing some of that people walking behind you kind of challenge that we experience as veterans. But on the other end, it wasn't really making it better. The other thing was she tried to chase cars. I mean, like, wow. Which probably led to her demise, unfortunately, but she was like, try to chase and bite tires of vehicles. And I was embarrassed on many occasions just walking her down the road and having to like dog on every end of the leash trying to get after a tire. But again, back to breed characteristics, it was her prey drive that was just revealing itself.
I was about to say, sounds very much like a German Shepherd.
Yeah. I mean, we put up baby gates in the house. She would jump right over them. She had zero boundaries whatsoever.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ryan, for sharing your time with Harley, for inviting us into some of the deepest corners of your hearts along the way. Also for sharing the incredible mission you have with Clear Path for Veterans, and not just the mission, but also the accomplishment you have already had along the way. And I'm just so grateful that you dedicated some part of your precious time to our show. And I'm sure our audience will absolutely love what they heard today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Sarah. It was an incredible opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a wrap for today, everyone. If you loved this conversation as much as I did, and if you feel moved by it and inspired and empowered, please share it with all your family and your friends. And also make sure you check out in the show notes all the links so you can connect with Ryan and his nonprofit. And we'll see you next Wednesday.